Toyohisa of the Shimazu clan was once hailed as the world's strongest swordsman, a warrior capable of cutting down 1,000 men in a single hour. Yet, despite his unmatched skill, he sacrificed his life in order to protect the general he loved, when their army was ambushed by enemies. However, the gods, recognizing his immense strength and mastery of the blade, refused to let such potential go to waste, and reincarnated him into a game world with overpower abilities, making him the strongest warrior. It is the year 1600, and a battle that will go down in the history books of Japan is in its last stages. The northern invaders have conquered most of central Japan, but there is one clan that is fighting them with everything they have got so that they cannot reach their territory in the south. The Shimazu clan, led by the fierce young general Toyohisa, fights bravely against the invaders whose army is much bigger and stronger than theirs. Toyo jumps into the battlefield like a madman, tearing through enemies without mercy. The foot soldiers are no match for him, and soon, the enemy leader sends his cavalry to fight him, but even they are not able to get past his troops. Frustrated and concerned by their loss, the enemy general decides to join the battle, but the Shimazu clan learns about this. Toyo's uncle, who is in charge of the troops, decides to head back to their territory now, but Toyo tells him that he will stay behind and buy him some time. The old man tells him that he needs to return with them as well, but Toyo confidently tells him that he is itching to go home too. He declares that if there is a place he wants to die in, it is his hometown, but if he can sacrifice his life here to ensure the majority of troops returning home safely, he will be satisfied. His uncle respects his determination and courage, leaving only a handful of soldiers behind to support Toyo against the enemy general. Soon, the enemy forces arrive at their location, and Toyo commands his soldiers to shoot at them. After that, he charges headfirst towards the enemy soldiers, easily cutting them down till he reaches the enemy general, who commends Toyo's bravery, but tells him that his clan has already lost the war. Toyo says that the battle is not over till he is alive and attacks the general. The enemy soldiers immediately surround the general to protect him, but Toyo jumps right into their spears, getting injured on purpose to catch the general unguarded. He then suddenly pulls out a gun and shoots him in the chest, but misses hitting his heart. The general loses consciousness, and seeing the ferocity in Toyo's eyes, his assistant immediately orders the troops to retreat. Toyo tells them to wait because he can still fight, but obviously they are not going to obey him. Toyo then starts walking home, injured and alone. He promises his dead soldiers that he will reach home at all costs for them, but then he suddenly vanishes from the dark forest and finds himself in an endless white corridor. There is a weird version of Nanami sitting on an office table in front of him, reading about Toyo's battle. Toyo can't understand what is going on, but as the office worker writes something in his file, his fate is sealed. A door next to him suddenly opens and Toyo gets sucked into it against his will. The door drops him in another world and then suddenly vanishes, and Toyo is so injured that he can't get up. Just then, two elves arrive there, and when they see the injured Toyo, they panic. On seeing that he is a human wearing strange clothes, they realize that Toyo is a drifter, which means a person from another world. Toyo, on the other hand, thinks that the elves are demons because of their long ears, and he laughs himself unconscious, thinking that he has been sent to hell. The boys wonders what to do with the injured man, but then the elder one decides to drop him off at the abandoned castle in the forest before anyone finds them. They somehow carry Toyo to the castle, but then suddenly, someone tells them to stop, threatening to kill them if they move or make a sound. The woman draws her bow as she asks the elves what they want, and they tell her that they brought one of her people here because he was injured. As soon as the woman sees Toyo, she realizes that he is from Japan just like her and tells the elves to get lost. The elves start heading back to their village, fearing that if the local lord learns that they helped a drifter, they will certainly be killed. Suddenly, the woman hears her friend's voice from within the castle, asking her about the new guy. She tells him that he seems to be a warrior from Japan, and though he is badly injured, he is alive. The man tells her to patch him up because if he is strong and lucky, he will survive. Meanwhile, Toyo keeps dreaming about returning home victorious, and when he wakes up, he finds a scary man lying on the bed next to him. Toyo immediately registers him as a threat and draws his sword, but the man also points his gun at him to level the playing field. Toyo asks him who the hell is he, and the man throws the same question back at him. Suddenly, Toyo sees a familiar crest behind the man, and he asks him if he belongs to the clan of legendary Oda Nobunaga, the man who united Japan. The man scoffs, saying that he doesn't just belong to the clan, he is the guy himself. Toyo doesn't believe him and swings his sword at him, but Oda dodges it. Toyo tells him that Oda died years ago, so either he is a ghost or an imposter. He tries attacking him again, but an arrow between the two men stops them from fighting. Just then, the female archer enters the room and gives Oda a wild bird she hunted to pluck its feather for dinner. She then sees that Toyo is awake as well, so she gives him another bird, and after the three of them are done plucking feathers, Oda asks Toyo if everyone thinks he is dead. Toyo says that everyone knows that he died 18 years ago after being betrayed by one of his ministers. Oda freaks out on hearing that because he came to this world just 6 months ago, but the woman starts laughing at him for making such a fuss out of it. Toyo asks the bitch who the hell she is, and she introduces herself as Yoichi, a legendary archer. Toyo is the one flipping out this time because Yoichi lived 400 years before him, and he thinks that something is really wrong with this place. After that, Oda asks him to introduce himself, and when Toyo says that he is from the Shimazu clan, both Oda and Yoichi make fun of him for being a generation country bumpkin. After they have calmed down, Oda explains that when he was betrayed by his minister, he made a run for it with his attendant, but then he suddenly found himself in a white corridor with infinite doors on each side and a weird office worker sitting in front of him. Both Toyo and Yoichi say that they experienced the same thing. After that, Toyo begins telling Oda what happened to his allies and family after he was taken to be dead. In short, everyone died at the hands of the traitor who became the new ruler of Japan and waged war on the nearby clans to extend his influence. Oda is saddened to hear this, but he quickly moves on and starts talking about other things. However, neither of the three warriors notice that someone is keeping an eye on them with scientific and magic tools beyond their time. The spy named Cypio informs her boss that there are 3 drifters in the castle, and the boss, who is probably operating from somewhere in Night Vale, says that it is a troubling sign. He says that they must stop the drifters as soon as possible, otherwise they will spell the end of the world. Meanwhile, Toyo and Oda are sleeping peacefully in the castle when they suddenly sense something in the distance. They immediately get up to find that Yoichi beat them to it. They look at the smoke rising from the distance, and Oda says that it is coming from the direction of the elf village. Oda says that the elves are in trouble and he can smell a battle, but Toyo asks him what the hell are elves. Oda tells him about the long-eared people who dragged him here, and as soon as he hears this, Toyo dashes towards the village. Oda asks him where the hell is he going, and Toyo replies that he has no idea, but the only thing he knows is diving headfirst into battlegrounds, and that is what he is going to do now. Oda and Yoichi are impressed by this reckless idiot who is full of energy now even though he was on death's door a few hours ago, and they decide to join him. They immediately catches up to Toyo, who tries to show off his pace to old man Oda, loses to Yoichi who is younger than him. Suddenly, they spot the 2 elf brothers who helped him earlier, walking towards them covered in blood. They beg for help as some knights approach them from behind, but Oda shoots one of them in the head before Toyo leaps past the boys and takes down the others. The last knight shows some resistance and asks Toyo if he is a drifter, but since Toyo can't understand his language, he decides to kill him too. The boys are terrified to see this, but Toyo tells them that he is just repaying the favor for saving his life. Suddenly, Oda arrives behind him, asking if he is going to kill the boys too because they don't speak Japanese. In response, Toyo forces the boys to ask for help in Japanese, and acts smug about it. After that, Oda begins examining the dead soldiers' gear, and he realizes that they are part of a regular army. He thinks that if the local lord is attacking his own people, he is inviting enemies to take his territory, and that is exactly what Oda plans to do. He tells Yoichi that they are going to take the village now, and the spy Cypio relays the message to her boss. The boss panics on hearing this even though he knows that this desire to conquer is the greatest quality of all drifters, and he tells Cypio to keep spying them. Meanwhile, the knights have rounded up the elves after burning their homes. The village leader asks the knight captain what crime did they commit, and the arrogant bastard tells him that they entered the forest and helped a drifter, both of which are the greatest crimes an elf can commit aside from making a bow. The village chief says that the children did that to save a dying man, but the knight says that he won't forgive them just because they are children. Suddenly, the brother of the 2 elves gets up and lashes at the knight, saying that their rules are impossible to follow. He complains that the humans treat elves as slaves, forbid them from hunting and gathering, and even take their women away. The knight tells him to stop yapping because if this is anyone's fault, it is the fault of his ancestors who lost the war. The bastard then suddenly stabs the village chief, saying that he is just culling the population and letting the useless elves die. The bastard rubs it in the face of the elf whose brothers saved Toyo, saying that right now his brothers must have already been killed by his soldiers. Just then, a soldier comes running to him and tells him that the wheat fields are burning. The knight captain panics because the wheat was ready to be harvested, but he doesn't know that it was Oda who started the fire on purpose. He tells Yoichi that he did it to take both food and dignity of the people ruling this territory, because then they will become helpless and weak, which means there will be no resistance when they take over the command of this place. Meanwhile, the knights wonders what to do about the fire that is out of their control when Toyo charges towards them. Before anyone can even make a move, Toyo kills one of the soldiers and then vanishes into the smoke. He appears behind the soldiers again, killing more of them. He walks towards the knight captain, saying that he will take his head, but the arrogant asshole doesn't understand what he is saying. Just then, the two brothers return to the village and tell the rest of the elves that the scary-looking drifter saved them. In the meantime, Toyo looks around and sees dead elves everywhere, and those who are left alive are crying for them. He gets furious on seeing this and challenges the knight captain to a fight, who gladly accepts it. Toyo starts the fight by throwing his sword at the knight, who easily parries it, but it was just a trap. Toyo is already upon him, and he grabs his neck as he smashes him on the ground. He then takes his scabbard and begins pummeling the knight's head mercilessly, beating him half to death as the horrified elves watch him. Oda also watches this from a distance, and then Yoichi joins him after finishing off all the soldiers who ran into the forest. Suddenly, Toyo stops beating the knight, keeping him alive on purpose. He then walks towards the old sobbing elf and gives him his sword, signaling him to kill the knight. The elf panics, saying that he can't do it, but Toyo tells everyone that they are going to be massacred anyway. But if they fight, they can at least get their revenge. Even though the elves can't understand his words, they understand what he means, and one by one, they pick up weapons from the dead soldiers. They walk towards the knight captain who is trying to crawl away. He goes from threatening to bargaining, and then pleading real quick. But the elves don't listen to him and keep on stabbing him till he dies. The elves are devastated after killing someone, but Toyo is proud of them. Soon, Oda and Yoichi join him, and together, they take charge of the village. The spy sees all this and immediately informs her boss at the castle of Carnes. She asks him to send backup, but he tells her that it is too late for that because the end of the world as they know it has already begun. At the northern wall of Carnes, which is a huge fortress that protects a lot of land, is in danger because a powerful enemy called the Black King is coming with his army to attack it and take it over. The Octoprists, who are a group of magicians that watch over this world and try to help the drifters fight against the bad guys, are very worried because they know the Black King is strong and dangerous and they need to do something fast to stop him. Abe no Haruakira, who leads the Octoprists, walks around Carnes and listens to the soldiers there brag about how their wall is the strongest ever and how no one has ever broken through it, and they laugh that they can beat anyone who tries. Abe stays quiet and thinks to himself that these soldiers are wrong because he can tell they aren't ready for the Black King's army, and he figures they won't last 2 days against the monsters and evil warriors heading their way. Abe decides he needs more help, and he takes a young Octoprist named Cafito with him to find 2 old drifters named Hannibal and Cypio who were famous war leaders from a place called Rome long ago, and he hopes they can use their smart ideas to save the fortress. After some time, Haru and his team ask the soldiers of Carnes to give up their command to the 2 old men, but the soldiers are furious and they refuse. When Haru's comrade insists, saying that they will soon die if they don't hand over the command, one of the soldiers asks what the hell can 2 filthy old drifters possibly do. Suddenly Hannibal pees his pants because he cannot hold it in for long due to his old age. The Carnes soldiers see these old men and tease Abe that they look too weak to fight, and they ask him why he thinks 2 grandpas can lead them when they can't even stand up straight or hold their pee. Seeing that the Carnes assholes are insulting his best friend, the old man Cypio steps close and grabs the soldier's collar tight and pulls him up. He growls and tells him that Hannibal crushed armies bigger than this idiot could ever dream of leading and warns him to shut his mouth before he regrets it. Fearing that the argument will escalate, Abe asks Cypio to stop and make preparations for their escape because the fortress will soon be destroyed by the enemies. He tells Cypio that the Octoprists will also withdraw, so before the battle with the Black King begins, they must allow the drifters to escape. Hannibal looks at his friend and dramatically declares that he is stronger than him, and soon the 2 old hags start arguing again. But suddenly Abe gets a message from the crystal ball that the enemy is near, and they have even blocked magic to cut all communications. While this happens, the Black King stands tall in front of the castle wall with his army, which has scary creatures like dragons and goblins, and also humans who obey him. Seeing that the Black King is all set to attack, the soldiers of Carnes unleash their arrows, but they fail to harm his huge army. Soon the Black King looks at 3 of his ends who are evil people from history and orders Hijikata to Shizo, who was a samurai from Japan, and Joan of Arc, who burns things, and Anastasia Romanova, who was a Russian princess, and now freezes people to attack Carnes however they like as long as they destroy it. Then he turns to Minamoto, who is a tricky warrior from Japan, and he asks him if he fights for the drifters or the ends because no one can tell what he's thinking, and Yoshitsune laughs and says he goes wherever he finds something exciting, which makes the Black King nod but not trust him completely. Soon a brutal war begins, and the 2 sides are caught in the crossfire. The Black King unleashes his dragons who start burning the land while the Carnes try to stop them with their bows and arrows. The Black King's side, which turns out to be 10 times stronger than the Carnes, start climbing the great northern Carnes wall. Abe, who is looking at the savagery from the castle's tower, realizes that it's too late to stop them. But suddenly the sky rumbles and a plane from World War II flies out of a gate in the sky, and Abe wonders on whose side this strange machine is. Kano Naashi, who is a loud and angry pilot from Japan's war, looks down and sees dragons and soldiers fighting, and he mutters to himself that this place is nuts with people riding dragons, and wonders how the hell he ended up here when he was just flying over the ocean. He yells at the dragons to not screw with him and keeps yelling about the strange situation he has landed into. Back at Carnes, the ends attack and everything falls apart because Joan screams that he'll burn the world and throws fire everywhere, and Anastasia whispers that she'll freeze their hearts and make ice cover the soldiers, and Hijikata sways his sword as he cuts through everyone in his way. The soldiers who bragged before now cry and run and beg for help as the northern gate gets taken over by Hijikata, and the city behind them turns into a pile of smoke and broken stones. The city starts burning, and the people run for their lives as the Black King's army marches into the city. Kano flies above and sees the mess, and he growls that this looks like Japan burning all over again. He remembers bombs falling on Japan and gets mad because he hates seeing destruction, and he dives down and shoots his guns at the dragons and yells that he'll kill them all because he can't stand watching this anymore. Meanwhile, Abe sees the fortress falling and knows they can't stay, so he grabs Cypio and runs on the outskirts of the city and asks them to escape. He apologizes to them for unnecessarily dragging them into this hell, but Hannibal scratches his beard and says the chances of winning aren't 0 if they can find more drifters, and Cypio nods and adds that they need someone crazy like that young General Toyohisa to turn things around. Abe agrees and brings Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, who are outlaws from America with fast guns and a big Gatling gun with him too. They start running, and Butch and Sundance fire at the enemies chasing them, and Hannibal claps his hands and says he wants a gun like that to take over Rome, and Scipio teases him that he'd lose it in a week. After dodging and killing the enemies, they reach the end of the city, and Abe announces that they are about to exit the western gate. But as soon as they leave the city, a dragon flies down to grab them, but Kano zooms in and blasts it with his plane, and he shouts that he's not letting these freaks win today. He reports through his radio that he will kill all the assholes today because they piss him off and remind him of the destruction of his fellow people in Japan. He doesn't know what the hell is going on in this world, but he will make sure to crush and burn all the pieces of shit who try to harm innocent people. Abe looks at Kano's plane in awe and tells Kafito that Kano is a drifter too. Abe leaves the city and promises that they'll come back to fix this mess because he's not giving up yet. On the other hand, deep inside the forest, the spy girl has lost all contact with Abe and wonders if the northern wall has been taken over. But suddenly Toyohisa jumps off the tree and smacks her head, asking why the hell she was keeping a watch on them. Toyo wonders if she is a spy, but Oda replies that she looks too dumb to be one, but they soon realize that the girl is speaking Japanese. The spy girl begs them to spare her life, but Toyo says that he will hand her over to the Demon King, who loves burning and killing things. A terrified spy girl jumps in the air and declares that she is Ulmanu, a magician from Octoprist organization, and she was observing them under the orders of her master. Both Oda and Toyo can't understand a word, so Ulmanu explains that people like them are referred to as drifters in this world, and the mission of the organization is to monitor their activity and bring them together, so they can fight against a group called Ends. Toyo and Oda tie up Olmenu with ropes around her arms and legs because they don't trust her yet because they still think that she snuck up on them. Olmenu looks scared and tries to explain herself by saying she's part of a group called the Octoprists who watch over drifters like them, and her job is to help them fight the Ends, who are evil people trying to destroy everything in this world. She asks them to untie her, but Oda starts laughing like a maniac, saying that she has completely misjudged him because he is the demon king of the sixth heaven, and he is most definitely evil. Toyo and Yoichi look at him in disgust and ask him to stop pulling a cosplay wherever he gets a chance, because it's embarrassing. Then Yoichi asks Olmenu on which side she thinks they are. She tells him that they are most certainly not Ends, because they've already helped the elves by fighting off Ort Empire soldiers, and she thinks they can help her save her kingdom. Moreover, Ends are not humans at all, and they would never joke around like them because they hold a deep hatred towards this world. She informs them that the Ends have gathered in the north, and they have allied with the monsters that live there, and soon they will take over their territory, so she is begging them to help her. An old-fashioned Oda declares that he doesn't give a damn if her kingdom is fighting men or monsters as long as they have an army with them, because the feudal system works everywhere the same way. A feudal lord has military power, and that makes him a lord, and he will never let a group of outsiders command his army. Then he starts telling how in the olden times, the lords of different kingdoms defeated outsiders, and Toyo can't help but wonder if Oda is a genius or a thick-skinned idiot. When the spy girl asks what she is supposed to do, Oda replies that her kingdom should allow the drifters to take control of their land, with Toyo as their leader, while their troops will support the trio. Hearing this, Toyo jumps 5 feet above the ground, protesting that he never offered to be a leader in the first place. But Yoichi and Oda start gaslighting him into taking the role, and the three start throwing hands at each other while the spy girl sniffles helplessly, but she thinks that the idea proposed by Oda is a good one. On the battleground, the Black King inspects the destruction from a hill, while Hijikata Toshizo tells him about the wins and losses. The Black King asks him to bring all the wounded at one place so he can use his power to heal them because they all are his brothers. Soon the Black King reaches the place where the wounded monsters, goblins, pigs and humans are gathered together, whimpering in pain, and he starts using his magical powers to heal them, and also praises them for fighting so well in the battle. Then he asks his men to spread the word that the northern wall has been taken over by the Ends. Then he asks his minions to chase Abe and his team of magicians and find out where they are heading to. But Hijikata Toshizo is still not sure if he will join the Black King, so he reminds him that he still plans on joining whichever side is interesting. The king declares that no one can defeat him because he is the greatest one who wanders far and wide, and he will not stop his mission until he has achieved the goal of killing each and every human on this planet and giving salvation to all demi-humans. On the other hand, the elves are having a meeting in the village because they are worried about their future. After killing the Lord's Knight and their harvest getting burnt, they don't have any means to pay the taxes. The Lord will take all their harvest in return for forgiving them, and there will be nothing left for them to eat. Hearing this, one of the elves marches forward and declares that they have no other option but to revolt against the cruel lord, otherwise they will be executed or left to starve. Suddenly Yoichi enters the hut and tries to speak to the elves in their broken language, but fails miserably. Both Oda and Toyo know that the elves have no idea what Yoichi is trying to say, so Toyo lunges at Olmenu asking how the hell she can speak their language, and asks her to help Yoichi too. So Olmenu shows them a charm that her grandmaster made, and this charm works as soon as one slaps it on the person who wishes to speak to someone else. Oda snaps at Olmenu, saying that she should immediately apologize to Yoichi for not telling them about the charm before, and asks her to lend a few to them. Soon Olmenu slaps a charm on Yoichi, and he starts speaking the language of the elves, but in a robotic voice. Meanwhile, Oda picks a few talismans from the ground and realizes that they resemble the talisman created by the astrologers in Kyoto, and he can't help but wonder who the hell is this hotshot grandmaster who managed to make these great charms. Then he asks Olmenu to tell him about those long-eared people, and she tells him that they are called elves. Decades ago, humans defeated them in battle. Since then, they have been forced to work on land as slaves. These people live a very long life, and they also have a strong sense of pride. Hearing this, Oda smirks in delight and whispers something nasty in Toyo's ears, asking him to speak to the elves on behalf of him, and hearing this, Toyo declares that Oda is a terrible man, and no wonder he was betrayed before. Toyo then walks up to the elves and repeats Oda's words. He tells the elves that they are a disgrace to their ancestors, and they should feel ashamed of themselves for not having a country of their own and letting other lords walk over them. He asks them if they wish to crawl and die or stand tall and die for their dream, and soon the elves turn furious and declare that they wish to have a country of their own and not be treated as second-class citizens. Hearing this, Toyo smiles and asks them to follow his lead, and soon they will take this land for themselves and rule themselves without worrying about any foreign power. Then he asks Oda why did he make him say all this, instead of saying it himself. Oda replies that he would rather prefer to be a manipulator that pulls the strings from behind the scenes. Hearing this, Toyo makes it clear to Oda that he is not his son, because Oda's son died at Enju Palace and he was killed by Mitsuhide. An annoyed Oda lashes out at him saying that he knows this shit already, and Toyo doesn't resemble his son at all. Toyo realizes that he was too harsh on Oda, and feels like he scolded his own father, but suddenly Oda turns around and plays an Uno reverse on him, saying that he is not his dad because his father died a long time back. Soon they both start throwing hands on each other just like always, and Yoichi is reminded of his bitter-sweet moments with his brothers. Suddenly Elf Shada, the son of the village chief who was murdered, interrupts their friendly bickering and tells them that there's no time for this, because the Lord's soldiers would be on their way to kill them. Oda replies that most certainly that's true, because the soldiers they killed were on patrol duty, and if they fail to return then their commander will send another force to take revenge. They have not more than 3 days to save their village, and if they fail, then they would be left to starve or killed. Shara asks them to lend them their strength and help them because the elves have never used arms before. They were only children when they were defeated 40 years ago, and their fathers and brothers have been killed in the battle. Toyo and Oda can't believe this when they realize that the elves are at least 100 years old, and Olmanu angrily explains that the elves' maturation rate is slower than other creatures. Moreover, the land initially belonged to the elves before the Ort conquered it, subjugating the people to work as slaves on farms and mines. The Ort is an expansionist kingdom whose battles have become deadlocked, and now they are full of anger, making them sworn enemies of the other kingdoms. Hearing this, Toyo becomes all serious and declares that they should let the enemy enter the village and he will deal with them in his own way. After 3 days, the Ort's soldiers reach the elf village, but they are surprised to see that the entire village is empty and there is no sign of life. One soldier checks the well and he shouts to the commander that it's full of filth and smells awful, and another says the dirt under the toilets is gone like someone dug it up and took it away, which makes them all confused because they don't know what's happening. Meanwhile, far off at an old ruined castle hidden in the hills, Toyohisa stands with the elves and Nobunaga and Yoichi and Olmanu, and he's got a fierce look in his eyes because he's ready to fight, and he tells everyone they're going to kill every single soldier tonight no matter what it takes. Back at the village, the soldiers start to get nervous because it's too quiet and they can't find anyone, and they don't realize the drifters have set a trap that's waiting to catch them all off guard. 2 days before the arrival of the soldiers, the elves were busy making bows and arrows because they're good at that. Toyo has already cut off the heads of some dead soldiers from earlier fights, and he buried them, and Olmanu yells at them for treating their fellow enemies with disrespect. Oda replies that nothing would have changed even if they buried them because they will still rot and get eaten by bugs. So all he is doing is speeding the process so they won't go to waste. They cleaned their heads and placed them neatly in a burial mound, and Toyo prayed for their souls, because he believes that's how their souls can rest. He turns to Olmanu and he asks her if she can find sulfur because that's the next thing he needs, and she says yes, but it'll cost money, and Oda smacks her. Meanwhile, Yoichi watches the elves train with their bows, and he's impressed because they learn fast and hit the targets well, and one elf named Shara tells him they're born to be archers, which makes Yoichi smile a little because he likes that kind of pride. He picks up his own bow and he shoots arrow after arrow right into the center of a target, and each one splits the last one perfectly because he wants to show them he's still the best, and the elves cheer and call him amazing, but they also ask him to stop wasting arrows since they don't have many left. Toyohisa also tells Oda that there are no women in the village, and Shara replies that it's because the Lord and his men take them away every year when the elves have their time to make children, and it's been going on so long that it's pushing the elves toward dying out completely. Toyohisa lifts his sword and he tells the elves they can take their wives and their lives back tonight, even if it means dying in the battle ahead. The night falls and the trap begins, and Toyohisa runs straight into the army barracks alone with his sword flashing in the moonlight and slashing the heads of a few soldiers who were guarding the tents, drawing attention towards himself. Chaos erupts amongst the soldiers and they all start chasing Toyo, and soon the commander realizes that the drifters are supporting the elves. Toyohisa fights in the middle of it all, and he cuts down anyone who gets close because he's fast and wild and the soldiers can't keep up with him even though they outnumber him. On the other hand, Oda guides the elves according to their plan, asking them to be quick and work according to how they have been trained, warning that if they mess up, they will end up dying. Soon the elves push the cart with Oda sitting on it, and he leads a small group of elves, and they sneak around the edges of the village and form a barrier to shoot fires with arrows because they want to make chaos and scare the soldiers into breaking apart. Soon the entire village catches fire and the elves fight for their homeland. Seeing their determination, Oda realizes that the soldiers of his hometown were weak, and that is why they betrayed him, but he is glad that he could help the elves and fight a guerrilla warfare like the great Hideyoshi. Soon he orders the elves to shoot more arrows, killing and injuring many soldiers. He knows that even if he manages to kill just 40% of the army, they will break down and will be forced to flee. Meanwhile, Yoichi and the rest of the elf archers hide on a hill, and they shoot arrows dipped in shit because they know it'll make wounds that kill slow and painful, and they hit soldier after soldier while the flames spread and the screams get louder. The soldiers run off to wash their wounds with water, but the well is already contaminated. Soon they realize that the entire village was a trap for them and now they have nowhere to go. Seeing the perfect chance, Toyo runs towards the commander declaring that he will cut off his head, and soon he jumps in the air and slashes the commander's head with his sword. Seeing this horrible scene, the soldiers run for their lives and the elves cheer in happiness because they finally won the battle. The village burns and the soldiers are gone, and Toyo walks through the smoke with blood on his face, and he doesn't stop because he's heading to the Lord's castle next. But Oda stops him, asking if he has any plan for attacking the castle. But Toyo has none, so Oda asks him to stop being a jackass and make a plan first. On the other hand, Yoichi is hiding in the forest with a group of elves, firing arrows at the soldiers who were escaping the battleground, making them fall in the pit of dead bodies infested with toilet waste. Back in the castle, the officials are angry with the Ort because they keep getting defeated by the elves, goblins, and other demi-human races. Just when they are talking about crushing the rebels before the seeds of rebellion spread in all elves' territories, a soldier runs inside the office and informs them that the soldiers have returned from the village of elves. But in reality they are Oda and his guys disguised as Ort's soldiers. Soon the gates of the castle are opened for them, and Oda asks the people to keep hiding well and pretend to be Ort's soldiers as long as they can. After a while, a fatty walks outside and asks Oda to report to him everything that happened at the elves' village. But Oda throws his helmet on the ground, and the fat official screams in fright when he finds out that these are drifters and elves disguised as the knights. Oda marches towards the official and declares that this castle will soon be taken over. Soon Toyo picks the fat man and asks where the hell are the female elves, and the frightened official quickly points towards the tower. Toyo runs in that direction while Oda tells the fat man that his soldiers are all dead or they are having fun in the pit made of soil and shit, and soon he will join them too. Toyo climbs the tower and cuts down the soldiers who try to stop him. He reaches the top and kicks the door to the cells open with one hard swing of his foot, and inside he finds the elven women locked up, and they're all hurt and crying because the men of the castle have assaulted them and left them broken. Seeing this terrible sight in front of him, Toyohisa loses his mind and his blood boils because he realizes the men here are pieces of shit, and he resolves to carve the flesh from their bodies with his sword until they die screaming. Meanwhile, Oda enters the main area of the castle and asks the elves to collect each and every document that has something written on it. Soon Olmanu walks inside the office, surprised that Oda actually managed to take over the castle. Oda points towards a large portrait and asks her to tell about it. Olmanu replies that the portrait is of Ort's father, the one who established the kingdom, and nobody knows if he was a drifter or an end. But one day he just appeared in a bar and started convincing people to revolt against the government. His speeches convinced so many people, and he led a march against the government. But one day he suddenly took his own life, and the rest is a mystery. While they are talking, an elf comes running and tells Oda that Toyo has gathered all the guards in the courtyard, and he keeps talking about ripping something out by its roots. Oda rushes towards the courtyard because he knows that Toyo is planning on killing the guards because they were sexually assaulting elf women for a long time. He smirks to himself, saying that he will take this twisted, unpleasant task from Toyo and take revenge for the elf women and let Toyo stay on the path of honesty. In the courtyard, Toyo has captured all the men and the elves are ready to shoot them with arrows, desperately waiting for Toyo to give them orders. As soon as Toyo opens his mouth, Oda knocks him down with a staff and gives the orders himself. He asks the elves to kill all the monsters who have been abusing those poor women for so long. Soon the elves shoot their arrows and blood splatters everywhere. After some time, Toyo wakes up and Oda tells him that he has taken care of the dirty task, because Toyo is still too young to give that kind of order. He tells Toyo that his hands are already dirty after killing so many clans, but Toyo punches him in the face, saying that he doesn't give a damn about Oda's dirty past. All that matters to him is his present, and Oda smiles at him. Soon Yoichi walks up to them and asks the elves why did they spare one of the officials, and the elves reply that he keeps on insisting that he has not slept with any of the elf women and killing an innocent will make the elves monsters. The word of Drifter's victory spread like wildfire to the other elven villages, and when the women from the castle returned to their villages, the atmosphere of confusion was soon replaced with joy of belief. But the women had letters from Oda in which he asked the elves to join the drifters and fight for their land and their women, otherwise another lord will take over and capture their women again. This sparked a countrywide elven revolt and marked the beginning of Ort's defeat. Meanwhile, chaos erupts amongst the officials of Ort who insist on backing down because they have lost too many people and resources. But suddenly a mysterious clown appears and introduces himself as the Count Saint Germy, the powerful noble who possesses 1/4 of the empire, and he was the first one to support the father of Ort, and without his support the kingdom of Ort could never have come into existence. Saint Germy doesn't participate in warfare and spends his days doing whatever he likes. Germy tells the distressed officials that a naval fleet that carries supplies to the western area has been attacked and lies at the bottom of the sea. These ships are being constantly attacked by the Pirate Merchant Guild and causing a huge loss to the kingdom of Ort. He explains that this has happened because they are being attacked from all fronts, because Ort has expanded itself by crushing its neighbors. Moreover, all their troops are abroad, which makes it even more difficult to defend the homeland. But funnily, the saint runs out of room instead of giving an idea to save the kingdom, and declares that he will himself go and see the elves. On the other hand, Oda is sulking because Toyo has made an assembly of elves adults who will rule their village instead of making himself the emperor. Toyo explains that it's for the better, otherwise one day the elves would have revolted against them, killing the 3 with flaming arrows because a person can't read the heart of others. Oda agrees with him but resolves to make Toyo an emperor one day. Soon Oda starts helping the elves to make weapons for and learn tactics to defend themselves against the enemies, while Yoichi trains them for archery and intensive shooting. The elves look at him in awe, whispering that he turns into a pretty man when he is quiet. Hearing this, Yoichi replies that he is the youngest of his 11 brothers and by far the ugliest, while his brothers are so beautiful that they make the flowers bloom, sea part and gold fall from the skies. Soon Toyo jumps in and slashes a big tree with a swing of his sword, telling the elves that they need to be quick and strong when it comes to dealing with swords. At night, Toyo can smell something sickening and declares that he can feel a bloody battle coming towards them. Soon the elves also wake up to the commotion, and suddenly one of them gets pierced by an anchor, causing chaos in the village. It is Joan of Arc who is sent by the Black King to kill the drifters, and he yells at the drifters to show themselves. Soon Toyo emerges from the cave and asks if he is a magician, and Joan smirks at him. On the other hand, Oda asks Elf Shara to gather all his men and ask them to bring arrows with them, and he also asks him to keep their women and children safe in the forest. Yoichi asks Oda if he will be able to manage everything alone. He replies that he is the best in the world when it comes to taking on mounted forces. Meanwhile, Joan asks Jills to kill Yoichi while he deals with Toyo, and Jills runs towards Yoichi and attacks him, but Yoichi is quick to dodge. Yoichi is impressed by Jills that allows him to slice through an entire castle wall. Joan asks Toyo to back off because he is blocking the Black King's campaign of world destruction, and he will not think twice before burning him to a crisp. Toyo replies that he can now understand what Olmanu was trying to tell him about. An end is truly irrational and crazy. Soon Joan unleashes flames from his body and traps Toyo from all sides, making it difficult for him to escape. But before he can attack him again, Olmanu jumps in with a charm and creates a stone wall around Toyo. Toyo gets a chance, so he takes Olmanu on his shoulder and runs in another direction. He drops Olmanu to a safe place, impressed by how quick she is in practicing sorcery. Olmanu replies that her grandmaster would have been able to pull a more advanced magic trick and apologizes for not being able to do enough. Toyo asks her to stop being so stupid and be proud that she saved his life, and soon he bows in front of Olmanu, freaking her out. Olmanu asks her to raise his head and fight Joan, so Toyo gets ready to deal with that jackass sorcerer. Toyo observes that Joan is too proud of his own power, and he fights like he is showing it off, and that kind gets killed in their very first battle. Toyo asks Ulmanu if she can make more stone walls, and she nods and shows more charms, so Toyo asks her to follow him. On the other hand, Yoichi is doing an incredible job fighting with Jills, managing to match all his moves and using his archery skills at its finest. He laughs animatedly and creates an aura of mystery around him. Meanwhile, in the forest, Oda is ready with his elf army and declares that he will teach the elves to kill the mounted forces so easily that even a monkey could do it. He tells the elves that even though the mounted soldiers look scary, they can be defeated just by trapping them from a high ground. He asks the elves to shoot arrows, and soon a bunch of arrows kill a couple of soldiers on horses, and the elves gasp in surprise by how easily Oda managed to kill so many. Joan, on the other hand, has gone berserk and starts burning lands and forests to find Toyo. He yells at Toyo to show up, otherwise he will burn the entire castle, but Toyo appears behind him. Joan unleashes his fire energy, saying that Toyo will be killed this time. Soon Ulmanu uses her charms and builds a wall behind Toyo as an escape route, annoying Joan. Toyo asks Ulmanu to build another wall and uses it as a launch pad to kick Joan in the chest, and Ulmanu realizes that her grandmaster was right when he said that the ancient Japanese warriors are actually insane. She realizes that Toyo places his own life on the line to take down the enemy's head. Toyo keeps pushing Joan and finally throws him in a well full of water, cooling him off. As soon as his body lands inside the well, Joan gets reminded of the time when he was being brutally burnt by the villagers in a witch hunt, even when she fought for France. Soon Toyo holds Joan by the neck and suddenly realizes that Joan is a woman with a knight's armor. Toyo says that it is not honorable for him to take down a woman's head and she should go home and put on some makeup. Hearing this, Joan gets infuriated and yells at him that no one will understand what she went through while fighting for France, and the sudden surge of energy throws them both outside the well. Toyo replies that he doesn't give a damn because he knows no shit about a province called France. On the other hand, Yoichi is trying his best to kill Jills, but nothing is working on him. Soon Jills traps him with his chains and Yoichi gasps for air, and seeing this Oda asks the elves to shoot arrows at Jills and save Yoichi. Yoichi asks Jills if he has trapped resentment in his body, which makes him immortal, but suddenly a machine gun comes out of nowhere and fires several rounds at Jills. He falls on the ground injured, but he crawls and stands up with difficulty, bidding goodbye to his beloved maiden Joanne, and breaks down into several pieces of salt. It turns out that the machine gun was used by Abe and his comrades, who finally managed to reach the drifters. When Oda asks them to introduce themselves, Abe tells him about himself and his team. Yoichi takes a moment to catch his breath after a brutal war with Jills, but suddenly a familiar voice pierces his ears. The voice belongs to Lord Yoshitsune, and it turns out that Yoichi has an upsetting past with him. The man keeps annoying Yoichi, causing him to ultimately lose his cool and yell that he will not take orders from him. Hearing this, Yoshitsune's voice says that he finds this side much more interesting. On the other hand, Oda is talking to Abe when Toyo joins him and asks who the hell are these people in sailor uniforms, and Oda tells him that this man is Seimei, but Toyo has never heard of any Seimei. Then Oda asks if Abe is from Kyoto, and was he also brought into this world by a strange corridor opened by a man. Abe nods his head in agreement, saying that it happened all of a sudden, when one day that man opened a strange door and he landed in this world as a drifter to destroy the ends. Then Oda asks what did Toyo do with the fire woman Joanne, and he casually replies that he headbutted her and threw her somewhere. They run towards the well to find her, but she is long gone. Abe yells at them asking, why the hell did Toyo not kill her, and Toyo replies that it is not honorable to kill a woman as it will bring shame. But Abe insists, saying that gender is not important when it comes to killing ends. Toyo replies that he doesn't care about Abe's rotten rules and he will follow his own ethics and walk away, saying that they are not some helpless pawns of that man in the corridor, but humans who live by their own principles. Hearing this, Abe realizes that Toyo is from a different Japanese era which was full of war, and that is why he is a samurai with rules. But he is worried about the ends, and wishes that Toyo and his team defeat them regardless of men or women. Then Ulmanu points towards Abe's cart and asks who is the old hag sitting there, and Abe replies that he is Hannibal, and he is a drifter too, and he collaborates with his friend Cypio. But while they were on their way here, they lost Cypio while dealing with the Black King's minions, and now Hannibal is left all alone. A search party has been dispatched from the headquarters, but they are yet to locate Cypio. On the other hand, a scared and nervous Cypio is wandering the forests of Africa trying to find a way out. He sobs that he wishes to return to Rome and take a nice warm bath as he hates the jungles of Africa. Soon he walks deeper into the forest and comes across a fighter jet that looks broken. But as soon as he tries to approach the plane, a group of dogs who look like humans point their spears towards him. Before Scipio can react, he sees that a strange man with a very weird language is coming towards him, riding on the shoulders of other dogmen. The man is Naashi, the Japanese soldier, and when he looks at Scipio, he starts abusing him, saying that he hates white-skinned Americans. But when Scipio tells him that he is from Italy, Naashi puts the puzzle pieces together and realizes that he and Scipio are from the Axis powers, and that makes them comrades, and soon they join hands. Then Scipio tells that he is glad that Naashi understood that he is from the Great Roman Empire, but Naashi kicks him in the ass, saying that he is a goddamned enemy. He asks Scipio to apologize to Germany, and soon they both start throwing hands on each other. On the other hand, Oda is learning about the new weapons from Butcher, and he tells Oda how they use machine guns and black powder. Oda is spellbound by all the weapons he had never seen before and asks them to give him the machine gun. But Abe replies that it would be unnecessary, because the machine gun cannot be made in this world. Moreover, they have run out of black powder that is supposed to be used in this. Oda replies that he has made some black powder already, but Abe declines the offer, saying that this black powder is made from chemicals and they are still researching it. Oda tells him that they can make some with the help of sulfur, which he has asked Olmenu to bring for him. Soon a carriage comes to them, and the driver tells Oda that he has brought the materials that he asked Olmenu to fetch, and Oda is overjoyed because the time has come to experiment his tricks and make black powder. Abe is looking closely and realizes that Oda is a dangerous man who needs to be monitored always, otherwise he might change this world a little too much. Abe knows that drifters are flesh and blood, and they act according to their own philosophies, and they don't follow a common goal like the Ents. Abe asks Oda what is his next goal after freeing the elves and making the black powder. Oda replies that now they will free the dwarves and everyone who is oppressed by Ort, and then they will form alliances with the countries that have been at war with Ort and destroy the cruel empire. He plans to wipe out Ort from the face of the earth, and then they will unite tribes and establish a multiracial federation, but Toyo will be the military king. When Abe asks why he planned to make Toyo the king instead of himself, Oda replies that he was never cut for this title. Toyo, on the other hand, doesn't care about loss, gain, and fear, so he can become a great emperor. But he can be a fool sometimes, so he needs an assistant like him. On the other hand, Toyo comes to meet Hannibal, asking if he has really gone crazy, and Hannibal as usual starts blabbering something about the Great Roman Empire. Toyo unleashes the sword and runs towards him to attack, but the old hag stops him with a twig pointing towards Toyo's eyeball. Seeing this, Toyo confirms that Hannibal might be old and weak, but he still has the skills of the warrior. Hearing the commotion, Olmenu runs towards them, and Toyo asks her to take care of Hannibal as he resembles his uncle. At night, Toyo asks the elves to help him free the dwarves, but the elves refuse because they are enemies with the dwarves for a long time. The dwarves never helped them when Ort was taking over their kingdom, but Toyo doesn't care and marches off, saying that true warriors can follow him if they want to. The elves ask Shaha if they should follow Toyo, and he replies that he will follow him because he freed them from the cruel kingdom of Ort. Moreover, he doesn't wish to repeat the foolishness of his previous generation. At the outskirts of the forest, Toyo comes across Abe and asks if he wishes to join him, but Abe excuses himself because he has to return to the headquarters. But soon Oda, Yoichi, and Olmenu join him with the other elves, and they all extend their support to Toyo. Meanwhile, the two Americans give Oda their gun, saying that he should keep it because he likes it so much. On the other hand, the soldiers of Ort and loading the cargo containing weapons to deliver it to the Western Front. The men are busy when suddenly huge boxes explode near them, creating an atmosphere of panic. Turns out that it is Oda and the elves who are throwing the black powder made from sulfur, shit, and charcoal. The soldiers start panicking and start running to save their lives, but Toyo blocks their way with his elf army and tells the elves that the enemy is already scared of them, so they should scare them more. Soon a crossfire starts, but the soldiers sitting on top of the barrack sense that the revolutionaries are taking over. So they aim their guns towards Toyo and the elves, but before they can do anything, Yoichi takes them by surprise and shoots arrows at them, causing explosions. The explosive arrows are performing well, and they turn out to be more effective than fire arrows. When the fire starts spreading, the soldiers start to escape, but they are caught off guard by Yoichi and Toyo, who block their way. Yoichi takes them down with his arrows, while Toyo cuts their heads down and declares that they will be storming into the castle soon and take over the town. But soon the castle gates are thrown open and huge armored beasts emerge out of them. The beasts are the armored guardians of Ort, and they declare that they will not let the rebels advance beyond this point. When Toyo looks closely, he realizes that these knights are made of steel. With no bows and arrows, he asks the elves to run for their lives. While Olmenu stands close to him to lend her hand, soon Olmenu throws her charms towards them, causing stone walls to surround the knights and trapping them in a stone coffin. Seeing that the armored knights are already trapped, Toyo orders the elves to throw black powder boxes inside the castle's walls, and they follow his command. Soon explosions rock the castle and Toyo declares that the enemy has been taken over and it's their chance to march inside the castle. But before they can, the castle gates are raised. Oda, who is watching everything from the other side, fears that Toyo won't be able to cross the gates of the castle. He looks at the old Hannibal casually eating raspberries and wonders why the hell they bring this mad old man. But Hannibal gives him a wonderful idea and Oda takes the crystal ball from the elf and calls out Olmenu, saying that she should use her stone charms just like he says to help Toyo. He declares that they still can win by using Yoichi's arrows and Olmenu's charms. On the other hand, the remaining soldiers are hiding inside the castle. Glad they managed to close the gate on time. One of the messengers informs them that all the soldiers outside the gates of the castle are dead and they are the only ones left. The soldiers declare that they will wait for backup and then they will attack the rebels on both sides and leave no trace of those demihumans. Outside the castle, Yoichi uses his archery skills to stick several charms of Olmenu to the castle's wall, creating a separate stairway, and everyone looks in awe. Oda realizes that the staircase is amazing, but they are nothing compared to the crystal ball that can transfer messages in seconds, and on top of it, the magicians have never noticed. But this sphere is a great tool to conduct warfare instead of just using it for research and reports. The crystal makes it possible for two forces to cooperate despite being separated by great distance. Soon Toyo climbs the castle wall with the help of the charm staircase with his elf army and declares that the castle will soon become theirs. Soon he unleashes his wild side, slashing, killing and injuring many who try to block his way. They manage to enter the tower and Shaha asks Toyo to free the dwarves, saying that they have lived as enemies for a long time because of their ancestors who were jealous of dwarves' ability to use their strength and sharp axes. He tells Toyo that the dwarves must be in the workshop district, and they should free them to fight the enemies together. A group of elves throw open the gates to the workshop district, and they are heartbroken to see that the place they are living in is no less than a concentration camp. They get reminded of the time when the elves surrendered their kingdom to the Orts, but the dwarves continued fighting with courage. The dwarves plead to the elves to break their chains and let them walk free, and they will fight alongside them. Soon Toyo walks inside the cell, and the dwarf looks at him in awe after realizing that he is one of the drifters too. Toyo frees the dwarves and takes them with him. On the other hand, Oda asks Olmenu to report to him the situation inside the castle, and she replies that Toyo has freed the dwarves, but they were starving and severely malnourished, so Toyo insisted on feeding them first. For that, Toyo has raided the provision store and taken the food and used the leftover items to make a fire, and now they are feeding the hungry dwarves stew and vegetables. Oda orders Olmenu to make rice porridge as serving heavy food to starvation victims will kill them, and they can't afford to let the dwarves die on them. While eating, Toyo notices two soldiers hiding and keeping a watch on them. He asks them to run for their lives or else he will skin them to their bones, but if they drop their weapons and escape, then he will not come after them. He gives them time to think about his proposal until the dwarves finish eating their food, and after that he will come for them. The soldiers realize that they will be killed as soon as the dwarves finish their food, because they will become strong and attack them in huge numbers. So the soldiers drop their weapons and surrender to Toyo, and now the castle is in Toyo's hands. He asks them about their lord, and a middle-aged man steps forward saying that he is the lord and asks if Toyo will let them go as they have surrendered to them. Toyo replies that he will set up a place for them to slit open their bellies honorably. When the old man protests, Toyo tells him that it is customary for the lord to slit open his belly to take responsibility for his wrongdoings. When the old man declines, Toyo cuts his head off, and the soldiers run for their lives. While everyone is busy with their tasks, the Black King has almost arrived on the borders of the kingdom to eliminate them all. Back in the castle of Ort, an elf runs to inform the official that a strange carriage is coming towards them. The official runs out of the castle and realizes that it is the carriage of the weirdo Saint Jeremy and asks the elven boys to hide. Soon the saint steps out of the carriage and looks in frustration because she expected streams of clear water and naked elven boys dancing in front of them. The official introduces himself as Mills, the former tax officer of the Ort, but he is captured by the elves, so now he works for them. The saint asks him to call the drifters and also present some elven boys so they can have fun, but Mills refuses, saying that all the elven boys and drifters are busy at another place to help free the dwarves. He also tells the saint that the dwarves are helping them build muskets, which deeply surprises the clown Jeremy, who asks where they are getting the black powder, and Mills replies that they already have some. So the Jeremy orders Mills to give her the best royal treatment while she waits for the drifters and other elves. On the other hand, the Black King meets up with the Bronze Dragon, who accuses the king of causing chaos and using his dragon comrades as his personal tamed pets. The king replies that he wishes to unite all demi-humans and monsters and eliminate all the drifters, and proposes the Bronze Dragon to join him. The Bronze Dragon gets angry and growls at him for taking him for granted and ordering him around like he is his servant. The Black King then twists his arm, and soon the Bronze Dragon growls in pain. The king then asks the dragon if he will join his side or die in pain like this. But the dragon keeps on yelling, asking the king to stop. But when his body starts melting like wax and he couldn't take it anymore, he finally surrenders to the Black King, saying that he will join his alliance. The Black King has great powers, which include creating things without limit, healing the wounded, bringing the dead back to life. But he still insists on his servants to learn farming because even the king doesn't have eternal life and he will die someday. The king then asks his comrade Rasputin if he has done the arrangements, and he replies that he has chosen an eye for their symbol and he has borrowed alphabets from the Romans to make it easier for them to communicate. When Rasputin asks what exactly the king is planning to do, he replies that they have diverse tribes in their community, so he needs to unify them by creating a common alphabet and a unified religion with a structured education system. And once they have achieved all this, they will replace the humans and establish their own civilization. On the other hand, the Russian ice princess is watching over Joanne, who is brought back from the battleground by the Black King. Suddenly Joan wakes up and asks about Jills, and when she learns that Jills has turned into a lump of salt, she gets ready to take revenge. But the Russian ice princess stops her, saying that a time will come when she will help Joanne take her revenge from the samurai Toyo. Meanwhile, the dwarves are eating like pigs and becoming stronger with each bite. Oda is desperately waiting for them to eat their fill up and then help him make a musket. Soon an old dwarf asks Oda to give his gun to him, so he can analyze it and try making another for him. Oda reluctantly hands his favorite possession, and the old dwarf observes it carefully. Then he asks why the hell does he need a musket when he can make use of bow and arrow. So Toyo explains that it is easier to teach someone how to use a gun, and he can become a trained killer in just one day, and by simply pulling a trigger a citizen can become a warrior. The next morning the dwarfs start working hard on making a musket, and Oda is surprised to see that the old dwarf managed to make a musket in just one day. The dwarf says that they are skilled ironsmiths and craftsmen, and if Oda would have provided them with blueprints, then they would have completed this task a lot earlier. The old dwarf tells him that they are all full and healthy to make more muskets, but at first they will be a bit slow because they are new at it, but after some days they will increase the production. Oda is flabbergasted to hear this and acknowledges that the dwarfs are indeed smart people. But while Oda is asking the dwarfs about Toyo, Count Jeremy enters the cave, smiling to himself that she has finally managed to find the drifters. Oda looks at the strange clown and asks Olmanu who the hell is this funny-looking court jester. A nervous Olmanu replies that he is a powerful noble who owns 1/3 of the Ord Empire. The count replies that he came all the way to meet the drifters at the deserted castle, but they never returned, so to meet them, he decided to come here uninvited. When Olmanu asks if he is on the side of the Ents or the drifters, he replies that she is an idiot because he has always been a drifter. So Olmanu asks why he helped the father of Ort to create such an evil empire, and Jeremy replies that Ort is a great kingdom and father of Ort, Adolf Hitler, was a great drifter. With Hitler's help Ort reached great heights, otherwise they would have been locked in combat with other races for the last 50 years. When Yoichi asks why he came to see them, Jeremy replies that he wished to see if joining them will help him or not. On the other hand, the other two underlings of Jeremy who were supposed to test the strength of Toyo are beaten black and blue by him. Soon Toyo brings them back, and they both kneel in front of their count, and Toyo explains that he beat the crap out of his followers. When Toyo asks who the hell is this blondie, Jeremy replies that he has come to sell his kingdom to them at a very cheap price. The next morning, St. Jeremy packs the drifters and the elves in his carriages and reaches the castle of Ort. The guards there try to stop her, saying that they never heard from the higher-ups that he will be paying a visit, so they can't let her go in. The saint throws a tantrum, saying that if the guard won't allow him inside, he will make sure that he rots on the front lines of battles, so a frightened guard agrees to let him go. As soon as they enter the city, Oda and Toyo, who are hiding in the carriage, see the state of the city, which looks like it has long been dead. The buildings look nice, but the people look like zombies. Oda points towards the market, which has dry and few bits of food on the shelves and nothing more. Moreover, there are not many young people on the streets because they have been enlisted for wars. According to the plan made by the Saint and the Drifters, the Saint is supposed to take them to the doorstep of Ort, and then they can execute their plan of throwing off the ruler. But Oda is worried because he hasn't been able to make enough muskets. But Toyo asks him to go with the flow, and Oda agrees because he can make things work, as long as the Saint doesn't betray them. After some time, the Saint assembled all the lords of Ort for a meeting. There he tells the officials that the kingdom of Ort shall be going out of business because despite building the country with their blood and sweat by fighting neighboring kingdoms, it's finally time to stop the madness and take back what is rightfully theirs. So from now they will start afresh and go for new goals with drifters named Toyo, who will be their new leader. Hearing this, the lords go crazy and ask the guards to capture Jeremy. But none enter the room because they have already been killed by Yoichi. The lords accuse him of treason, but Jeremy doesn't care because the father of Ort is not alive anymore and asks the lords to raise their hands if they support him. A few of them agree to go along with Jeremy, but one of them is not ready to make Toyo the head of the kingdom and asks Jeremy to give the ownership of the kingdom to the Black King. It turns out that this official is being controlled by the Black King's minion Rasputin, and he has been hypnotized to speak for the Black King. When Jeremy sees this, he asks Rasputin if he has become an N too, and suddenly Toyo enters the room with his army. Rasputin looks at Oda and Toyo in amusement and tells them that the Black King is far too preoccupied to personally deal with troublemakers, so he will deal with them instead. Toyo wastes no time and jumps in to kill the monsters in one go, and Rasputin is flabbergasted to see that he lost his men in a span of few seconds. Toyo then walks towards the official who is hypnotized by Rasputin and starts kicking him without warning, causing utter humiliation to Rasputin. Then Oda walks towards Rasputin and asks him to smile because this is just a beginning. Toyo declares that they had the intention of fighting from the beginning, and they will not hesitate to spill blood if someone comes in their way. Oda backs Toyo, saying that Rasputin was mistaken if he assumed that they will take the country without bloodshed, and now he should stop pouting in front of the mirror because the drifters have come to save this country. The Black King is monitoring everything from a faraway land and asks his comrades Hijikata and Rasputin to not lose hope, because if they feel that capturing Verline is difficult, then they can do whatever they wish to by causing destruction and confusion, and they are free to kill and burn as many as they wish to. The next morning, Oda wakes the hypnotized official who looks confused about what happened with him. Then Oda asks him how many Black King bastards did he let in. But the silly official has no idea, so Toyo punches his jaw to make him shut up. Then Oda asks for the map of Verline, and Jeremy tells him that his elite 500 soldiers will back them up. But when the soldiers arrive, everyone including Oda are flabbergasted to see that they are shirtless and the men are holding each other's hands. When he looks at Jeremy for explanations, he shyly explains that the men in his army love each other, and they are homos. Toyo doesn't wish to waste time, so he orders the soldiers to get ready and take a musket each, and Toyo single-handedly manages to form a battalion of matchlock muskets. He asks Oda to lead the musket soldiers while he will lead the dwarfs, and Yoichi will lead the elves and guard the frontiers and rain arrows when needed. Oda and Toyo order everyone to not spare a single Black King's soldiers. Soon the 500 soldiers form a battalion and stay in to guard the city, and Oda asks everyone to send in communications through the crystal ball. Everyone takes their position and they are ready to attack the Black King's army. Oda sees the first group of monsters approaching them and orders the musketeers to get ready with their guns and inspires them with his powerful speech, saying that they will save the world with their guns. Then he orders them to fire, and the destructive power of the musket guns leads to mass murder of the monsters, who are taken aback by the sudden attack. Then Oda and Olmenu order Yoichi to fire arrows, and Yoichi follows the timing, leading to a brutal attack on enemy soldiers. Then he orders a second range of fire, and it kills even more monsters. Then Toyo jumps in the battlefield with his men, and the great battle between the drifters and the Ends begins. In a wild battle, Toyo, who everyone calls the head remover, swings his sword fast and cuts through the monster enemies standing in his way, while nearby the dwarfs show off their anger, swinging their axes hard and knocking down soldiers, letting out 50 years of built-up mad feelings. At the same time, Olmenu yells at Yoichi, telling him to shoot arrows from far back to mess up the enemy army, and Yoichi listens, quickly sending his arrows flying through the sky, while Oda tells his gunmen to keep loading their guns and shooting without stopping. For a short time, it looks like they might win because Toyo sees the enemy pulling back, and everyone starts to think they've beaten them, but Oda feels deep down that something seems off about the enemy running away so fast. Things change fast when Yoichi looks around and tells everyone the enemy isn't really gone, but has broken into little groups running all over the city and starting fires to make smoke that hides everything. Hearing this, Oda gets more worried, thinking the monster army's leader might already know how guns work, which could be bad news. While far off, Toyo meets that leader face to face, and he is a big scary guy named Hijikata from the Black King's army who hates Toyo's clan a lot. Toyo smiles and teases him, saying he can tell just by looking that Hijikata isn't from around here, which makes Hijikata super mad, and he lets out a weird dark power with spooky skulls and voices of dead people floating in smoke. Smoke warriors jump at Toyo, but he stays calm and then jumps high and fights Hijikata with their swords banging together loud and strong. The fight gets bigger as Toyo keeps teasing Hijikata, then runs off, making the angry leader chase him, and quick as a flash Toyo throws some sloppy wet food at Hijikata, laughing that he doesn't follow rules in fights and just wants to chop off the enemy's head. Hijikata gets super mad and breaks Toyo's sword, then calls out ghost fighters who cut Toyo's body, making him bleed, but even with blood dripping, Toyo stands up tall, not giving up. While over on the other side of the battlefield, where Oda is anxiously trying to come up with another plan, Hannibal starts throwing raspberries and smashing them all over, which gives Oda a new idea. He shouts to Yoichi asking where the enemies are going, and Yoichi climbs up on the elves' shoulders to see better, saying the monsters are moving messy and probably heading to the big capital building, so Oda figures out their trick and decides fast. He tells everyone to leave the capital and asks Ulmanu to call Toyo back right away. Oda gathers his gunmen and Ulmanu and shows them a map explaining a smart plan. They will hide in outside buildings waiting for the enemy to come close and then jump out together when he says go, and it works great as the monsters rush into the empty capital building, but then get hit with a fire trap when Yoichi shoots a burning arrow to light it up, and the elves shoot more arrows too. As fire spreads, the gunmen blast their guns, breaking the monsters apart, and when some try to run, Ulmanu uses her magic to lock the gates tight, turning the building into a hot firebox that burns the enemy inside. While this happens, Hijikata watches his soldiers burn up, and Toyo takes the chance to tease him more, saying he comes from a family of brave fighters who died strong, and he is just a silly kid picked by Oda and Yoichi to lead this job. Hijikata gets so mad that he uses all his power and runs at Toyo, but Toyo has a sneaky idea. He yells to an old dwarf nearby, telling him to shoot a fast gun right through him at Hijikata. With one last push, Toyo jumps up and kicks Hijikata hard in the face, knocking him back. The Black King, watching from far away, tells Hijikata to stop fighting and come back, but Hijikata says no, yelling that he's not done yet, and Toyo flips him over easily, teasing him in the fight and asking who he's even talking to. He swings at Hijikata's neck with his broken sword, but Hijikata hits back, smashing his head into Toyo's and throwing some punches, and just when Hijikata lifts his hand to punch Toyo again, a huge dragon flies down from the sky and grabs Hijikata, pulling him away. Toyo shouts at him to come back so he can take his head, but he's so tired he falls down and collapses. In the end, the Black King's army has to run away, leaving Toyo and his friends with a tough half-win. While back at the Black King's temple, a new guy named Ichai Kurito talks to the king, saying if he can kill Oda, then he'll join the Black King's army. So the fight might be over for now, but more trouble is coming soon, and Toyo's group knows it.